citizens of this city council has to know what we're going to be doing. We can't be just put off with, throw us some proposals and we'll see what we think.
Because we believe, I to this day believe, that as long as the county can paint us in the corner, in the bad light here, that we were the ones who were unwilling to negotiate, that we were the ones who were unwilling to work with them and how much they wanted to be here, then that's what gives them the permission to go spend the money of the new sales tax and go build a new court building someplace else.
I'm going to go back to a question you asked earlier.
Okay.
Because you asked, do we believe that Rob is negotiating in good faith or doing a good job of negotiating? And what I want to point out with Rob, because I can't say that I'm a 100% pro Rob on everything that he does, but if you look at the job that Rob does with negotiating, and that's his job. He negotiates everything from Mimi and the Rose. He negotiates the new agreement that we're working on up here with the property purchase off executive.
Mm-hmm.
No one is standing up and saying, gee, look what a terrible job he's doing. Mm-hmm. If you go down Rob's list of accomplishments with negotiation, he's been very successful for this city in negotiating some very, very, very good deals.
Even our past collective bargaining agreements.
Absolutely.
So one thing that was brought up in the podcast I did with Mr. Shaw was he was talking to me about that Mr. Schomer, the city manager, made some negotiating errors. He mentioned Good Sports, he mentioned the naming rights for the Rose, and he mentioned this county. I'm going to call it an ordeal. So I'm just throwing it. That was mentioned.
So
So
for the
what
record,
are your thoughts?
So can we talk about how this that information is coming from people who did not support the extension of the city mayor's contract? So to say that politics don't have anything to do with the opinions of Mr. Shaw and Mr. Otto would be completely inaccurate and unfair.
I think politics has a lot to do with a lot.
Because it's I wouldn't disagree with you. We feel it. The naming rights to the Rose. So I wasn't the mayor then, so I can't say what that process happened. But what I do know is the naming rights went from initially $2 million to $4 million.
Mm-hmm.
And Rob had everything to do with that. So the naming rights became $4 million in the final agreement when what was being talked about was $2 million. That's a pretty good negotiation to me.
So what I heard was that Rob, this is what Mr. Shaw said. Rob brought back, and I don't know him personally, so I'm going to say Mr. Schomer brought back $2 million, and council said, that's too low, go back and negotiate more. So that would have been on the direction. I mean, this is just coming from Mr. Shaw.
Okay, but that's ridiculous because if Rob gets an offer, what would have been the other side of that? Rob looks at somebody who makes a $2 million offer and he says, go pound salt. He comes back to council and tells council, hey, we had a $2 million offer on the table. I told him I didn't like it.
Right.
And then Rob goes back to him. Now that particular vendor says, nope, not interested anymore. No. Rob's job, if Rob would have said no to a $2 million offer for naming rights and came back to that council and said, I turned down $2 million, they probably would have fired him.
Right.
So they said, no, if council said, no, we need more, that's good communication between the city manager and the council. He goes back and brings back an extra $2 million. And whatever that negotiation process was, he brought back an additional $2 million. I don't know how you can say that was a bad deal. Let's talk. Don brought up the property and executive. The last known private offer for that property was $4.5 million, and it was turned down. We bought the property for $3.75.
Mm-hmm.
Rob negotiated that price $750,000 less than the last private offer.
Where possibly the fair was going to go. Is that what
No.
We're
Okay.
talking
This is
about
the 51 acres on
Boulevard.
executive.
Okay, so Roger.
2 years.
What's called the Lehman Farm.
The Lehman
Right.
2 years ago, I believe it was, 3 years ago, there was a $4.5 million offer made on that property that was turned down.
They declined.
So
They declined. Rob negotiated that for $3.75.
there was a deal. I remember reading in the Dayton Daily News and maybe seeing it here on the council that there was something coming in called the Heights. Somebody was coming in there. They were going to build some stuff. What happened to that, and why is the city now having to buy this land?
So look, the Heights was nothing. So I won't say it was nothing. The Heights was at the time when
Because there was a contractor brought in and all that stuff, right?
No, there were different developers that looked at it, but
Okay.
the city was excited by what some developers' vision was for that property, but the city didn't own it.
Correct.
So if the city doesn't own it, the city can't negotiate.
Right.
The city can't force someone to purchase it. As noted, that there was a developer who offered $4.5 million for the property, and the property owner said no. So what can this city do? What can the council do? You can't force a private owner to sell their property to somebody.
Right.
Would have $6 million have bought it? I don't know. Would $7 million bought it? I don't know. What I do know is they turned down $4.5 million. Now we're in a situation where we're using money for the purpose of economic development from money that we made on the sale of the property behind where Beerman's used to be, now behind At Home, where Gander Mountain is at. So let's talk about that negotiation. I think I even saw the ex-mayor take credit for negotiating that deal. I mean, what I know
On
is,
a blog post.
Yeah, what I know is that he wasn't the mayor when that purchase and sale agreement was finalized. I was very privy to the negotiations that was going on and what Gander Mountain had, or Gander Outdoors had offered for that property, and where we countered and where they countered and where we ended up, and that was a very favorable, again, probably by $200,000 to $300,000 more than what was initially what Gander Outdoors wanted to pay for it. So I've got a list of things that I know Rob Schomer has negotiated very well on behalf of the city, and it was Rob. It wasn't anybody else. So, what eventually 2 + 2 has to equal 4.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at all the 2s, if 2 + 2 is 4, 2 more is 6, and 2 more is 8. All of the 2s line up for Rob Schomer and the city and the things that we're doing. Where 2 + 2 all of a sudden equals 7 is the discombobulation between the county administrators and the county commissioners and a judge who is up for an election, who is speaking at a Republican meeting. That's what doesn't add up. And for anybody listening to this podcast, and even you, Matt, to think that that doesn't stink to high heaven of trying to make us look bad so they can eventually get what they want, and that's a new court building someplace else with our tax dollars that they just raised after an $18 million deficit.
In all fairness, I did not remember the April 22nd meeting when he did a presentation. Either I didn't remember or I didn't watch it because I never saw that.
I remember it
until
specifically,
yesterday.
and it was easy for me to find because all I did was ask my wife, hey, when did we go see Vince in Texas?
Okay.
And she goes, it was our spring break. It was the last part of April. Bingo. I mean, that's how I found it.
So
and it was right on there. So
I
you
listened
saw that.
to that when I was in line picking my kids up from school today. I listened to that meeting, and I heard what he said there, and then I can remember what was said at the Republican meeting. So there is...
So what changed?
To me, I don't know. And I think that's what we all want to understand a little more is what is changing, what is going on. And if it's the county, as you say, or if it's Rob, as some other council members have said, something needs to get worked out.
I don't disagree, but I don't have...
And that was question 11.
Okay. I don't have the, admittedly so, I don't have the relationship with the county commissioners that Mr. Shaw and Mr. Otto do. They're down there talking to them. I don't have the relationship with the county administrators that Mr. Shaw and Mr. Otto do. I'm working Monday through Friday at the times that those people are actually working and available. I don't have that kind of free time. But it's also not my place. So, and again, all of this is coming from people who are political during an election season, who have an axe to grind with our city manager, who have an axe to grind with me, and have an axe to grind with every other member on this council that's not Mr. Shaw or Mr. Otto. And it pisses me off. I don't like it. It stinks to high heaven, but I can't go out here and maybe I could, but I won't express my frustrations because I'd prefer not to have us on the 6 o'clock news all the time. Believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think a lot of people, but that's a tough.
Well,
It's
it is.
nobody wants to be on the 6 o'clock news, but there's a lot of things in our city that needs ironed out, and I think a lot of citizens are starting to see that. Some are drifting away from that stuff.
Then every person who is upset about what's going on with the courts, in my opinion, instead of beating us over the head with the club, when we're doing everything we can.
Mm-hmm.
This is Montgomery County. They should be down at the county building talking to the commissioners, asking, why are you spending tax money that you just raised when you've got a perfectly viable court option in Heber Heights? Why is nobody asking that?
Okay.
Why is nobody
now,
asking that?
The other
Are
point-
do the county commissioners hold public meetings like we have here?
Yes.
And do they allow for city comment for the folks listening?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
What I do know, I had a conversation. So the last time Richard and Glenn went down to the county offices, clearly to talk about this, they were met with Rob going in as they were coming out.
Okay.
Rob was down there. I had a meeting with Rob after that meeting, and he told me our county administrator's exact words were, this might be a big deal to Heber Heights, but we're tired of this penny ante horse shit, is pretty much what he said.
Mm-hmm.
So he told Rob that they were done. That is the last conversation that Rob had with, except I don't know if that was either Michael Colbert or if that was Tyler, whether it was the county administrator or his assistant.
So they said they were done, meaning they're done
just
dealing with the court system?
Done dealing with Heber Heights.
Okay.
So that's what they said.
And
Clearly,
why do
we're
you
not.
feel that?
Clearly, well, I don't. I mean,
Is it because of Mr. Schomer or no?
no. Because I think they want to leave.
Okay.
There has to be a bad guy to give them permission to spend the kind of money they're going to spend on a new court building.
So
After
another scenario that I heard with the courts is that some folks at the county was thinking about moving our court building to the new Trotwood court and consolidating everything in Trotwood. However, Trotwood, there were some folks that talked with Trotwood. They said they would support, and I don't know who's talked with Trotwood, they would support leaving Huber's here. Trotwood would support that. So I don't know if that's the scenario.
But I heard, just from reading, I heard that the judge at the Republican meeting said, in fact, I believe it was a comment made by Andy Otto where she was talking about the ineptness of the city manager, which I find insulting, that the judge specifically said that it would take about 2 years to build the new court building. So I'm hearing the judge say it's going to take about 2 years to build a new court building, and they only want a 2-year lease with us. I just don't know why nobody else is like putting the pieces of the puzzle here together.
Okay.
They're telling us every way, shape, or form that they don't want to be in Huber, but if we're not the bad guy, politically it's bad for them because they're spending money unnecessarily after they just increased the sales tax to build a new $2 or $3 million court facility. And that, to me, that's what 2 and 2 equals 4. Not that we're all trying to screw the county and Rob's a horrible negotiator and we won't give them what they want. We've bent over backwards to try to, again, by even offering the building at a very, very severe discount for a purchase to really maintain a long-term position here.
Now, is that offer in writing or is that offer word of mouth? Is there something that the public could see? Okay, this was the offer.
I can't say that because we directed Rob. I think I think Rob made that offer, talked to them, and upon the offer that we made them, Rob came back to us and just said, uh,